Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patty Lapone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. We are working with the Perelman Performing Arts Center reimagined production of Cats called Cats, the Jellicle Ball to bring you a series of episodes throughout their run. I am honored to have a ballroom Hall of Famer, Tempress Chasity Moore, with me here today. Tempress is an actress, singer, ballroom icon, and the queen mother of her own house, which I cannot pronounce, so I'm going to have her say it for us. And while she is yet to change my mind about naming my show, her Grizabella is the closest I've been to changing my mind, and will have you rooting for her to return to the runway at the end of this production. So I'm excited to have her here. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited. I always like talking to Grizabellas because my show centers so much around the arc of your story. And the version of this is the clearest picture I've had. I love it. And we'll get into that. But I want to actually start us on the other side because you're a ballroom icon and a legend in the ballroom world. But what was your familiarity with Cats before this production? How much did you know about the musical?
To be honest, I mean, of course, like as a child, I always seen the promos and I've always heard Memory and, so I've seen the Grizabella part, but I didn't really know a lot about it.
Okay.
I didn't know so much about it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of was. I've been wondering because I mean, you get the biggest number and you have like the most important part, but there's so much to that story that did they in this rehearsal process go through a lot of that with you and like kind of go through the whole Cats aspect of it?
So like somewhat, but a lot of people. There was a couple of people who told me not to actually watch it because my Grizabella was a lot different, and that they liked that aspect of it. And so I seen as much as I could. I didn't want to, because like we are reimagining it. So it was coming from ballroom. So I have a lot of knowledge on ballroom. So I wanted to kind of tell my story from the ballroom aspect of it.
No, I love that. And so let's start there with the ballroom aspect of this. So I thought when I heard about it that this is a perfect vehicle for telling the Cats story. As someone who knows nothing about ballroom but knows way too much about Cats, I love the idea of the competition aspect that you brought into this. So when you kind of heard about this production and you were, joining on, what was the ballroom lens like? I guess, how did you bring some of your ballroom experience to that?
Well, first I was like, at first I didn't know how, I was like, what is going to be the correlation? And then especially I didn't want to be there, like a lot of appropriation going on.
For sure.
Coming from ballroom. And so, it being like a marginalized community, people came to ballroom because of, seeking love that they weren't getting from their family or society, period. And so a lot of times now that ballroom has crossed over to mainstream, a lot of people are using ballroom and doing ballroom, and they have no idea of the backstory of ballroom. So I was a little like, wait a minute. But then when I started thinking about Grizabella and I seen how when Grizabella came back to her community, she was shunned because of, age and, things. Ageism runs rampant in ballroom. Like it's the same thing, and so I started building off of that. Girls who fell on hard times. Not only that, a lot of the character for me was like me being a trans woman, and growing up in society where as a lot of people wasn't accepted of us. We had to be stealth at one point. So a lot of us left ballroom community because we didn't want to be associated with it. And so then now that it's being more accepted, there are girls who come back and sometimes they don't get the reception that they want.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of the arc, too, of Grizabella. And I thought the storytelling, I don't want to spoil too much. I think people know the Grizabella story, but your production does a beautiful job of bringing the ballroom, bringing her back, like you said, with the ageism. And that is where I thought was, as someone who's spent 170 plus episodes arguing against Grizabella as a choice, to see that full story as like, that kind of makes a lot more sense of being able to kind of be back on the runway, being back in the spotlight and being celebrated for that, which I thought was such a beautiful moment to be able to bring that in the story.
Yeah, she falls on hard times, and, a lot of the girls have, because, a lot of trans women didn't, because of the discriminations in the workforce and stuff, some of them, fell to sex work, and, that led to drugs or what have you. They had to do what they had to do. And some of them, they didn't have the best outcome. So for me, that was just kind of Grizabella's backstory. Like, but she's coming back to ballroom, still trying to feel this grandeur of who she once was. And she feels like everybody should just accept that, because she once was an icon in ballroom, and she doesn't really get that reception coming at first. Or in her head, she doesn't feel like that,
Completely. One thing I think is always really interesting in the musical Cats productions is the relationships between all of the different cats, and especially with Grizabella, because there is this almost fear at first, and then curiosity, and then acceptance, and that kind of story that goes throughout. I'm very curious about this production, how you weaved between the ballroom aspects and the Cats' musical aspects.
I think that was kind of definitely you had to, I feel like, the Cats, Andrew Weber's people, like, there were things that you couldn't go outside of the lines, or you had to stick to you or whatever. I would have loved to see a ballroom person. I mean, even though you had us or whatever, and then you did, and Junior does not allow anything to go past. Like, if it's not ballroom, he's going to speak up. And most of us do. But we kind of did our own research. And then, a lot of the cast of the Broadway people just went and started watching balls and doing their own research. Or we would sit down and talk to one another. Or we just spoke up and said, no, this wouldn't happen like that. So it was kind of like our own research type of thing.
Okay. Yeah, I love the mix between the cast, too, of just having a wide range of experience kind of brings it to life. So I want to talk a little bit about Memory, because it's the iconic song of the show that everyone knows. What was your first thoughts when you kind of realized that, hey, when you're getting cast for this, that this is going to be, you're going to be on the spotlight and get to belt this number?
Listen, I thought I had anxiety.
Yeah.
I was waking up with night sweats at 3:00 in the morning. It was, I haven't been on stage in over 20-something years, and, in singing. So it was just something that I really had to dedicate myself to, getting a vocal coach, like just really, like at first it was very scary for me. I would just get so scared, but everyone has been so welcoming and helpful. William, who has definitely worked with me a lot. And, it was a lot of pressure, but the pressure is going away. I think I'm like getting into my groove now. It did take me some time to like really, get out of my head and just go ahead and do what I do, and realize that I was there for a reason. And there was something that I brought to it that they seen that I brought that I didn't want to compare to anyone else.
Yeah. I mean, your memory is amazing. So this is such an iconic number. And, we were waiting as we were getting to that moment, and, you kind of builds and builds and builds, and then you just belted it out, and it was beautiful. So I was curious, because it's one of those numbers that everyone knows. Like, no matter who walks into that theater, they're going to know Memory. They might not know the rest of the stuff. They might know the overture, but they might not know Skimbleshanks or Mungo Jerry or some of these other songs, but they know Memory. And so it's got to be that whole all eyes on you.
No, and I definitely have room to grow, and I'm only getting better and better. So just tell them to be on the lookout.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of doing it, so many times a week, is you get you get practice and
Right.
exposure doing this. And I think that's, with a short run, it's also such an interesting aspect to it too, because you're doing it for 2 months versus, years at times for some of these shows.
Going into rehearsals that we were rehearsing and tech, all of that was new for me. So it was like, oh, wow. Rehearsing from 1 to 5 and then a show that night, for 2 weeks straight. But it was great. I'm so glad that we premiered now.
Yeah, now that you're officially open and through and
Yeah.
and with incredible reviews, which is amazing to see. And then I mean, we dropped our review while the day we're recording this. We dropped ours and we raved about it, but we were waiting to see kind of what the critics were, and the critics raved about it as well. And I think rightfully so. I mean, it does a beautiful job telling the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I spoke to a lot of people, and some people said that this is the first time that they really understand Cats. I've seen people
Completely.
say that. Yeah, I've had people say that to me. So we have been getting a really, really good reception. The audience has been amazing.
So I would love to talk a little bit about the audience, because I have, again, as someone who knows Cats too well, I did think that this told the story in a very beautiful way, and really actually made, I thought, your story one of the easier ones to follow that wasn't always as clear in other ones. And again, not unclear, it's just they're different with the way it's told in the musical. But I found that this is a great particular production for some of one of those kind of quote unquote Cats haters, because there's a lot of them out there because it's an easy punchline for a joke. Cats is easy to poke fun at. And I've heard a few who have went and they've loved how this actually, again, tells the poetry through a different lens. But also it sounds like, the energy in the audience is just infectious. And so as a performer, how are you are you feeling that energy as well? Are you feeding off of it? Because I loved in the beginning, they even stated this isn't a musical. You don't have to just sit there, get into it and
Right.
encourage us to be in. And I felt that from the moment I sat down to the moment we left.
Absolutely. We love it. You never know what's going to happen. For me, like I said, I hadn't been on stage in a while. So I was hoping that the audience would be engaging, because that does help you, especially with so much energy. The cast is amazing. The way they're out there dancing and voguing and singing and doing all of that, it would just be horrible if no one was engaging.
Yeah.
So I love that. They've been, even with Grizabella, people are feeling so connected to her, and they've been standing up, clapping for me and stuff like that. It has been so heartfelt, and it just makes me want to go even harder.
Mm-hmm. So as you experience this type of show, how does this how would you describe ballroom for the musical theater people that are coming to this? What's the baseline of what they need to know as they walk in, so that way they understand those aspects? Because I feel like that's a part that maybe I missed. There was judges behind me. I was kind of following some of it. But what is the, if you don't know anything about ballroom, this is what you need to know to really understand the nuances that are added to this production.
Okay, so ballroom was a bunch of underprivileged kids, who, it's marginalized community that comes together that felt like they couldn't have. It was basically like an underground Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was for a lot of kids who were kicked out, LGBTQIA+ kids who were kicked out back in the days from their homes and lived on the streets. And, so you started these chosen families. And these chosen families, you had the mother, the father, the kids, and they would come together. Crystal LaBeija actually was a big part of it, because she was in the pageant scene,
Mm-hmm.
and they were in, she was a colored brown girl, and she was tired of losing to, her white counterparts. And she was that she wanted to start her own thing. And so the House of LaBeija started, and then they started the ballroom scene, which was the chosen families that came together and they competed. And so you have your judges, you have your different categories, like the Vogue category. And with us, they do the Virgin category in Cats. They do the body category. You do your realness category. These were categories. Realness is somebody who was able to pass in society. without them knowing, your preference, like your gender, or, as a trans person, some people not knowing that you're trans or gay, what have you. So it's just different categories that, it was kind of a mirror of society, things that we wanted that we felt that we couldn't have at the time.
Yeah. And I love the competition piece because I had my original breakdown of Cats was that I thought it was American Idol on drugs. Like I thought I watched a very weird singing competition. And so when when you get these different moments where I love that each Cats win, like they have these competitions, fits that same type of thing of like, let me tell you why I'm amazing. And you go through each cat, and you can have that piece, which is I think, again, why it kind of brings the poetry to life really well.
Yeah, because it does. Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died. So I promise that you have to say your house name because I was going to butcher it, and I did promise it up top. So you are the mother, the queen mother of your house.
So I'm the founding queen mother of the House of Maison Margiela. I'm actually one of the founders. And it's called Maison Margiela. And so the houses are really kind of started off of designer names. A lot of them are designers. Most of the houses, they mirror like the House of Chanel, the House of Prada, things like that. So they mirrored like designer.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask, did you all figure out which house the different cats would go into?
We didn't figure it out. I think as a part of the character building, some of that I wasn't there for, but I believe because of the characters, they put them in certain houses.
Okay.
Like characters that had a relationship, then they put them in certain houses together.
Okay. Yeah, I plan to ask everybody which house their cat would be in when I'm interviewing them. But I did think that they created a house for Grizabella, right? The House of Glamour.
The House of Glamour.
I love that. I think I saw that and immediately was like, that's just such a brilliant way. So, okay. Before we go to rapid fire, what is your favorite part of this production? Like, what's the thing that you love seeing every night or think the audience loves? Like, what's just your favorite moment?
Of course, I love when Grizabella is accepted, when she finally gets over her out of her head, out of being nervous to hit the floor again and feeling that people don't accept her or whatever, and realizing that and after she sings Memory and then all the kids run up to start touching her and hugging her and everything, that's a moment. And then she walks up to go to the Heaviside Layer. Like, for me, that's like a big, that's one of my favorite parts.
Yeah. The apex of the show. I do think, and we'll get in, I'll hold my thought here because there's a part I think about when I think about the Jellicle choice that with your particular story and version, I want to get into. But before we do that, let's do some rapid fire. So if you could play any other cat besides Grizabella for just one night, whether you could sing it, dance, it doesn't matter. Just if you could go on, whose track would you want to do?
I just think Macavity is so funny.
Yeah, Macavity's great.
Yeah, so it's such a mystery and so funny the way that Macavity appears and everything. I love that.
Mm-hmm. From personality-wise, so not a performer, but personality-wise, who are your favorite and least favorite cats in the show?
I love all the cats. I think everybody.
Yeah. I always think about it as like, which family member do you want to hang out most with? And then which is the one that you're just like, them again.
But it's so funny because when we were building, Macavity is like, the connection between us is that he used to be in the House of Glamour at one time. He's like,
okay.
Because she's the founding mother. And before she left, he's like, I used to be a part of your house. So I love that. That was like,
Sounds like you're a team Macavity here.
I just think Macavity is so much fun. The character is just so fun. Like,
yeah.
Of course, like, he got his ways about him and you never know what's going on with him and he's a thief and all that. So no, that part, no, but he's so fun. But that story that he tells that did happen in ballroom. Like, you did have people who had to get things by any means necessary, and they were walking labels and stuff, and so you would never know. You like, well, how did they get this stuff? And they had to get out there and get it. So I just think that resonates with me as far as like ballroom. I've seen those type of people.
What's your favorite song in the show?
Of course, Memory.
My fun question is that since I was going to ask every cat what their house name would be, but you're already the House of Glamour, so who's like the number 2 in line at the House of Glamour behind you?
Well, the House of Glamour, there's no one there anymore because, she left. She left the scene, and so her house kind of closed. Everybody went somewhere else because she left the scene.
Okay, so she's done, but you come back.
I do come back, but not enough time to like regroup or get, once in the ballroom scene, you are good as your last.
Yeah.
Like, you are good as the last time you walk. Like, if they don't share your history, it's erased. So I feel like that's the same thing with Grizabella. Once you leave a lot of times, and that's why I wanted to, like, a lot of ballroom people have come and they like, oh my God, this hit so hard. And we need to really, look out for those older women in the scene who fell by the wayside or we know nothing about anymore because they are slightly erased. Like, you don't hear about them and no one seems to care because they're no longer walking balls.
Yeah. So let's go into that exact aspect, because my last question is, who is your Jellicle choice? So if you were picking, are you picking Grizabella or somebody else?
I'm picking Grizabella.
I assumed you would. I've never had a Grizabella not pick Grizabella. But let me ask you the question though, because what you just said is exactly my counter argument to Grizabella, which is you get to walk the ball, you get to like come back, you have your moment. Why can't you still be part of the culture in the room? Like, why do you have to end there? Like, why do you have to retire? Because like, I want the story to continue exactly as is, but I don't want you to stop. I want Grizabella to come back and stay and reopen the House of Glamour and send up somebody else tonight for the Heaviside layer. And Grizabella just keeps doing her stuff. You talk about like wanting to make sure that the ballroom community recognizes some of the older, forgotten ageism that's there. But then you're rewarded by being retired. Like, I guess, how did you think about that? Or did you think about that?
I don't think that she's rewarded by being retired. I think that it's more of we want to see her win because she has fallen, because we want her to get back to at least where she was before she's sent off. Like, because she's like in such a bad place. Like, she comes back in such a bad place. And I feel like her winning, it just, it gives her confidence back. And it shows her that she can be more than what she has fallen by the wayside to. And that's why I feel like, she should win, because she needs that. She needs to feel that acceptance from someone. She's already went out into the world and she felt like the world didn't accept her. Now she's trying to come back to her community and she's feeling like her community didn't accept her. She's just been having loss after loss. So like, why not give her a win?
So I agree completely with all of that. And what I loved about this production is in the first act, there are a couple other cats that got to win their particular ballroom competitions, but then they stayed. And so I want Grizabella to stay. I don't want you to walk up the stairs, really, is what it boils down to. I want to send somebody else up the stairs at the end, because you've earned your moment to spend more time with your chosen family.
Yeah. I don't know if I disagree. Okay.
Here we go. I've been trying to convince them to let me walk up one night.
But would that make a good, performance if she just said, I just feel like that like solidifies everything.
Totally. It's a different show.
Back into the world. Really, in this situation, yeah, it's a different show. This is her going back into the world, and now she has her confidence and things back, and she's able to, go and turn her life around because she got what she wanted, so, yeah.
No, I agree. I think, and this production, again, does the clearest job of where you come back and also like a lot of times people argue for Gus, and Junior is not ready to go. Like it's Junior's living his life on the runway there.
Right.
So there's no chance he's ready to go. But I thought like, oh, the House of Glamour back open, we're ready to go, you're being accepted. And it's like, no, let's just keep going. Let's not send you back up those stairs. So it still kind of is the same argument I've been making for a while.
Well, a lot of times, like, with ballroom, sometimes like you need to pass on the torch to, and, sometimes, yes, there is ageism, but then sometimes there are people who just I mean, we'd love for them to stay in the scene, but like if you're holding on to an overall position for like over 20 years or something, it's like, how are you? You're not a leader if you're not creating other leaders. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, let her get her just dues and then the next person, let her go on. Like she doesn't have to necessarily stay and still be like mother of the House of Glamour. She's founded it and pass it on.
Yeah, I think so much of this hinges on what you believe the heaviside layer is. Like, what are you walking to up those stairs? Because my joke has always been you're walking to death.
I know. At first I was like, oh God. I was like, am I going to heaven? Like, what is going on?
I agree completely. It's beautiful. And I think like the stories, I love the way you all told it. Like, I just love the way you put it together. And like, again, we raved about it for our entire recap. Like we actually turned it from, I like refused to call it a review because I'm like, we're just talking about how amazing it was. Like it's reviewing it, but it was so much fun. And I think I want everyone to see this because as someone who is known and spent so much time talking about the story of cats and defending the like depth to the story, this is going to, I think, help a lot of people who don't know that as well get a clearer picture of it. And then at the same time, also expose a lot of people to the ballroom culture, which, as you said, is going a little bit mainstream, but it's still something that is, there's more education that can be done. And so I have just been floored with everything you all have put together and hope everyone gets to run to the PAC to see it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think Bill and Jaylon has done a wonderful job putting this piece together and respecting both aspects. And like you said, shedding light on the community. I love it. And yes, come out to the PAC. And thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, how can people stay in touch with you on social media and everything else you're doing?
So my Instagram is I_am_Tempress. That's TEMPRESS. And on Facebook, it's Chasity Moore. That's CHASITY. Last name Moore, MOORE. I also have a podcast on YouTube. That's Femme Queen Crazy Sexy Cool. That's FQ Crazy Sexy Cool.
We will link everything so that way you can find it in the description notes. We'll also link how to get tickets to the show, which is running, I believe, until July 28th of this summer.
Yes, we've been extended to the 28th.
Well, thank you for coming on. Again, this has been so much fun, and I always love talking to a Grizabella. I feel like I'm slowly getting closer to maybe changing my mind, but not quite there.
Thank you. It felt like that. It didn't feel too bad. I thought you was going to really get Grizabella, but she didn't. So I feel like you're coming on over to the Grizabella side a little bit.
I love it. I'm not there, but I'm pro Grizabella's story. I'm just not pro the heaviside layer choice. So we're getting there. Thank you, and thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any else listed podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.